All right. Well, I see it's 6:30, so we'll begin to call the meeting to order with the introductory paragraph. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Board of Health will be conducted both in person and via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at townofgb.org. For this meeting, members of the public and committee members may attend the meeting in person, or for those who wish to do so remotely may by following the instructions at the top of this agenda. For those who are not in person, every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. With that being said, we officially call the meeting to order. A roll call, Peter Stanton.
Aye.
Dr. Ruby Chang.
Aye.
And I am, Michael Lanu. We have no meeting minutes to approve tonight, so we'll move on to any updates or questions from the Board of Health before we proceed into our public hearing.
Ready to proceed.
I second.
Just a moment, let's see. My hand up here. There we go. All right, if you'll bear with me, we're without Rebecca tonight. She usually handles the technical side of things. She had a baby, I believe yesterday. She has a new baby boy, so congratulations to her. And I was just looking for my keyboard. Well, this bounces around. There it goes. All right. We have Mike Hugo with us. We have Mr. Janeski and Attorney Barnes. Attorney Barnes, is there anyone else who you'd like me to promote to panelist for your presentation?
So can you hear me okay?
Yes, it's a little quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm joined here by one of my colleagues, Bob Cox, who's also representing Housatonic, and then Jim Mercer of Housatonic is also on the call.
Okay.
I'm going to be handling the bulk of the presentation, so there might not be a need to promote them at this time, but there might be a need for them to speak at some point.
Okay, well, I'll promote Jim now. He can at least be there. If there's anyone else who comes up in the meantime, well, they can just raise their hand and we'll get them on.
Perfect.
Okay. Look for a motion to open tonight's public hearing.
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
I second.
And for a roll call will be Peter,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Okay. So just a brief introduction. Our order went out. Last week we received a notice of appeal rather quickly, I think within the same day. And so that's what we're here to hear tonight. And so Attorney Barnes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Barnes. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Bowditch and Dewey, and I, along with my colleague Bob Cox, who's also on this call, represent Housatonic Waterworks Company in connection with its appeal of the Board of Health's order to correct, dated August 22nd, 2024. James Mercer of Housatonic is also on the line via Zoom. Before getting into the substance of the appeal, I would first like to thank the board for the opportunity to come here tonight and discuss the issues surrounding the order to correct. I think we can all agree that discolored drinking water in Great Barrington is a matter of great public concern. Housatonic is understanding of this concern and is willing to work with the board in a good faith effort to ease the concerns of the public and of the board. However, The order to correct, which fails to indicate that Housatonic has actually done anything wrong, and which contains penalties so excessive that Housatonic would be almost certainly forced out of business within days of noncompliance, cannot stand as written. To this end, Housatonic reiterates its request previously submitted to the board that all deadlines for performance of conditions in the order and associated penalties for non-performance be stayed pending the board's decision on appeal and any negotiations amongst the parties in furtherance of potential resolution. Turning to Housatonic's appeal of the order to correct, the order to correct should be rescinded in its entirety for 3 reasons. First, the order is preempted by the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act and the state regulations effectuated under the act. Second, the order is not supported by any evidence that Housatonic is causing a nuisance. And third, the penalties set forth in the order are exorbitant and threaten to force Housatonic out of business. Turning to my first point, the order is preempted by the Safe Drinking Water Act and the state regulations effectuated under the act. Now, the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act established a comprehensive regulatory scheme governing public drinking water standards in the United States. Under the act, primary enforcement responsibility is delegated to the states, and the states in turn work with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to create drinking water regulations consistent with federal standards. As such, the Safe Drinking Water Act and the federal state safety and testing standards established under the act control and preempt all other federal, state, and local activity concerning drinking water. Massachusetts drinking water regulations under the Safe Drinking Water Act were established by DEP and have been laid out in Massachusetts code. DEP's regulations contain maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs, associated with manganese and haloacetic acid 5, the 2 contaminants identified in the order. Further, DEP's regulations set forth detailed testing and monitoring requirements for each contaminant, including the manner, frequency, duration, recording, and reporting of all such testing. Housatonic is in compliance with the MCLs and testing requirements set forth in DEP's regulations, and there's nothing in the order contradicting this. Rather, through the order, the board is attempting to substitute its interpretation of drinking water safety for that of the US EPA's in direct conflict with DEP's regulations. In the order, the board cites its power to address nuisances within the town. However, this power does not permit the board to take action that conflicts with the state's uniform regulation of drinking water. The board, through its order to correct, is essentially second-guessing the US EPA and the DEP's regulations concerning drinking water safety. The board attempted to circumvent this disconnect by citing to its powers under GL Chapter 111, Sections 122 and 123. However, Section 122 does not give the board the power to issue orders. It only contains reference to regulations. Further, Section 123 permits the board to order the owner or occupant of a private premises to remove any nuisance, but the order does not actually identify any nuisance existing on Housatonic's premises or order its removal. The discolored drinking water caused by heightened yet non-toxic and regulation compliant levels of manganese during warmer months is simply not a nuisance that the board has the power to address. Housatonic is actively working with DEP, the agency actually in charge of enforcement of drinking water regulations, to address the discoloration. Housatonic is doing this not because it has done anything wrong, but because Housatonic understands that the residents of Great Barrington want to see clear water when they turn their faucet on. DEP has approved the implementation of a green sand filtration system to address increased manganese levels and combat discoloration. But because public water supply is so highly regulated, testing, design, and implementation of systems such as this takes time. Housatonic is currently in the design phase with respect to this system, and the system is set to be installed next year. Because increased manganese is a seasonal issue caused by warm weather, and Housatonic plans to flush the system in October, we are likely nearing the end of discolored water in Great Barrington altogether, as the filtration system is scheduled to be installed prior to next summer, when temperatures will rise again. Turning to my second point, the order is not supported by evidence that Housatonic is causing a nuisance. In the order to correct, the board concluded that Housatonic is causing a nuisance not because the water fails to meet DEP's safety standards, and not because testing fails to meet DEP's requirements, but because Housatonic's testing is somehow not sufficiently independent. However, the board does not define what it deems to be adequate testing. It fails to explain whether and under what authority its definition of adequacy differs from DEP's regulations, and it does not explain how Housatonic's testing allegedly fails to meet this undefined standard. The order also makes a vague and unsupported claim that Housatonic's testing may be unreliable, indicating that testing of the water supplied and distributed by Housatonic may produce subjective or unreliable data. The board's assertions here are vague and speculative. The board provides no evidence and doesn't even claim in a straightforward manner that Housatonic's testing is in fact unreliable. Further, as previously discussed, the levels of manganese and haloacetic acid in the water are within acceptable and safe limits set forth in the DEP drinking water regulations, and the board has not made any allegations to the contrary. Moreover, inexplicably, the board has not taken any measures to stop the residents of Great Barrington from drinking the water, such as declaring a water emergency or ordering households to boil their water. Nor has the board exercised its power to lift the ban on single-use water bottles. And I can only assume that the board has not taken these actions because there is no evidence that the water is unsafe. From Housatonic's perspective, the order to correct is fundamentally unfair. Housatonic is acting in accordance with all laws and regulations governing its water supply. The issuance of an order to correct contemplates that Housatonic is doing something wrong, and that is simply not the case here. The fundamental unfairness of the directives set forth in the order is amplified due to the fact that the penalties set forth in the order are incredibly excessive, which brings me to my third point. The penalties set forth in the order are exorbitant and essentially guarantee that Housatonic will be forced out of business. The order contemplates three categories of penalties against Housatonic. First, $1,000 per day for each day that Housatonic deviates from the board's undetermined supplemental water testing demands. Second, $1,000 per day for each household to which Housatonic fails to provide 1.5 gallons of bottled water to each inhabitant per day indefinitely. And third, $1,000 per day for any violation of the order. With respect to the bottled water fine, Housatonic has approximately 750 service connections in Great Barrington and provides water to over 750 houses. As such, the board is threatening to fine Housatonic over $750,000 per day, every day, indefinitely, when Housatonic fails to provide bottled water to those residents, despite the fact that not all households are experiencing discolored water. Fines of this magnitude would put almost any business, including Housatonic, out of business almost immediately. Based on this consideration alone, the fines just don't make sense. And they make even less sense considering the fact that Housatonic is in compliance with all applicable regulations. They've done nothing wrong. Further, it would be virtually impossible for Housatonic to avoid incurring fines pursuant to this provision, even if it wanted to. It would be impossible for Housatonic, a company comprised of 4 employees, to locate, collect, and distribute such a large amount of bottled water within the extremely short turnaround time set forth in the order or to obtain enough bottled water to indefinitely sustain such a massive distribution effort, all while still running the water company. Further, the fines are unsupported by the language set forth in General Laws, Chapter 111, Sections 122 and 123, which clearly cap fines at $1,000 per day. The board's attempt to multiply penalties by each household is unlawful. The directives and penalties associated with noncompliance carry with them the near certainty of destroying Housatonic's business, which serves to harm not only Housatonic, but all of the Great Barrington residents that Housatonic services, along with the residents of Stockbridge and West Stockbridge that it services. As written, the order to correct will not help the public, but rather will cause chaos and a true health crisis for the public after forcing its water supplier, the only public water supplier in Great Barrington, to cease operations. For these reasons, the board's order to correct should be rescinded in its entirety. And Housatonic would like to avoid litigation if possible. However, if the parties are unable to reach a compromise and the board is unwilling to rescind or modify its order in a manner acceptable to Housatonic, Housatonic will have no choice but to seek relief in court as early as tomorrow. We are confident that the order to correct will not hold up in court and believe that it would be a much better use of the parties' time and resources and the public's resources to reach a resolution regarding this matter. And to the extent that it would be helpful to further settlement discussions, I'm happy to send the town's council copies of the pleadings that we have already prepared in the event judicial intervention is ultimately needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dineski, would you care to respond to any of what we just heard, or?
Mr. Chairman, I'll say a few things in general. You've heard a three-point argument. The first is that action by the board is preempted by the Safe Drinking Water Act. I would disagree with that proposition. There is case law regarding the authority of a health department or a board of health to take action with respect to matters that are of local concern. We could have a long discussion, I think, on the preemption issue, but suffice it to say that town council does not agree with that argument. You, as a board, have considered a lot of evidence before issuing the order, so I think you yourselves are able to take stock, take account, and determine whether what you have seen and considered supports the order that you issued. There was also a point made regarding the authority of the board under Section 122 of Chapter 111 of the General Laws, and the assertion that the board is only authorized to make regulations. The section is broader than that. It talks about a board of health making investigations into nuisances and directs a board to destroy, remove, or prevent the same. And in my view, an order such as the board has issued falls within the scope of that authority of destroying, removing, or preventing. With respect to the penalty provision, the board has followed the amount specified in the statute. I think the point of contention is with respect to a per person per day. The board, I believe, has considered that based on the history and the gravity of the situation. But that's certainly something that the board has the authority to consider or modify if it chooses to do so. Lastly, to the points that were made at the outset and at the conclusion of the presentation, there's a representation that the company is willing to work with the board to address the situation. So I think it's fair for the board to make inquiry about what kinds of things the company would be willing to do.
Great, thank you. With that being said, Attorney Barnes, what would your client, how would that be fleshed out, how would they be willing to work with us?
Sure. So I have discussed with my client items that they would be willing to take on in lieu of the directives set forth in the order. And at the outset, I do want to indicate that we would like to get, or the client would like to get, DEP's approval of everything that we are prepared to offer, because DEP is the entity that's regulating Housatonics testing activities with respect to its water. So to the extent that DEP approves of us going forward in this manner, I'm happy to lay out what we do propose.
Please do.
So my client is willing to increase manganese testing from monthly to weekly for a period of 30 days, and to expand to 6 manganese testing sites for that period of 30 days. We propose that the sites include the current sites, which are the Housatonic plant, the Housing Authority on Park Street, Brookside School, and Depot Street. Housatonic also proposes adding a new site in the center of town and a site on North Plain Road. We are willing to negotiate with the board in terms of choosing these 2 additional sites based on Housatonic's consultants' recommendations. We propose that the water samples be taken by Housatonic Basin personnel, that the independent laboratory to perform the tests be microbac. We are open to letting the board choose the laboratory where the samples will be tested, so long as there's no significant increase in cost to my client. We propose that Housatonic Basin will distribute the test results simultaneously to both the board and to Housatonic. We propose having a further meeting with the board after the 30-day period of increased testing is complete. Then 2 other, I guess, more minor items. The board already has Housatonic's contact information. Housatonic is amenable to being contacted by the board at any time, including nights and weekends in the event of an emergency. And Housatonic is amenable to providing a work plan with date milestones within a reasonable amount of time after the parties reach an agreement regarding next steps.
Okay. And care to comment on what would next steps look like, or what would a work plan look like?
It would entail the items that I just indicated
Okay,
once an agreement is reached.
so if I could just in a nutshell, characterize your comments, basically your clients are willing to increase testing to weekly only for basically 1 month or 30 days, using the 4 current sites, but only adding 2 new sites, and using the same laboratory and the same personnel to collect samples as they've done historically.
That is the proposal. I also indicated, though, that my client would be willing to use a laboratory of the board's choosing if the board would prefer to do so, as long as it does not result in significant increased costs to my client.
Okay. And that would be the total of what your client is proposing?
So I do believe that it makes sense under the circumstances. The manganese levels are going to drop next month after the system is flushed, and we don't anticipate them increasing again. This problem is going to go away. But if this would provide a level of comfort to the board and to the public, we're happy to do that.
And that assertion that it's going to go away in the short time frame is based on historical record, or what would that be based on?
My understanding of the situation over the past several years is that, well, really in the Northeast, manganese levels in water systems across the Northeast have increased in warmer weather over the past several years. That's what's been happening here in Great Barrington. I understand that my client flushes their water system or has started flushing their water system in the fall after this situation arose, and that after flushing the system, the levels drop back again. And it's not really a problem in cooler weather. And Housatonic is working to implement that green sand filtration system, which they anticipate having installed before next summer. So if all goes to plan, this increased manganese levels, they won't occur next summer.
Okay. Thank you. So we as a board have heard these 3 points tonight, one about regulatory authority, one about the lack of evidence, and one pertaining to the level of fines. I can understand the level of fines argument to a point. But that's just my opinion. But I think it's a little difficult for me at this moment tonight to consider rescinding this order entirety as we've been asked to do. But I would like to hear from the other board members and their thoughts about what we've heard as the justification for doing so, and also as what we've heard as a proposal for alternative effort or alternative agreement in lieu of this order.
Well, can I just score first? Okay. Section 123, abatement of nuisance by owner penalty. So section 123, said board shall order the owner or occupant of any private premises at his own expense to remove any nuisance, source of filth, or cause of sickness. So that is something that we are going for this order. This is not to have evidence that there has been excess of manganese in the water. It is a nuisance law. So that is where we are at. So that fulfills that section to completion. Number two is that this is a condition that has been ongoing for many years. And I don't think this is just a one-time issue. We have requested over and over and over again, and nothing has been done. That is a nuisance. And it's a nuisance to the people who have to use and deal with this water day in and day out. And it's a harassment to the people that the company serves. And that is a big issue because we have enough stress in our system, in our community, that this is one additional thing that has not been addressed appropriately in a way that satisfies the residents who pay for this water. So you're looking at scientific data, I'm looking at a nuisance data. And that has been ongoing for such a long time that people are desperate for some sort of answer as soon as possible. We're not going to do continuing more testing, which I had requested from the DEP and they never gave us. So I don't have any data as far as but from verbally, I was told that the manganese level has been within limits by the DEP. The haloacetic acid has been out of whack. In the last quarters, the first 2 quarters of this year. So we're not looking at just brown water. We're looking at other contaminants. And the last 2 quarters so far, well, the last 2 quarters of last year was bad. There was a problem. The first 2 quarters of 2024 were fine because in October, they had put in the construction of the first part of the haloacetic acid remediation method. That was in October of 2023. So that we know is happening. The DPU has 5 stages of work that needs to be done. And because of that, they had increased the cost to the residents with a stipulation that until each stage is performed, they're not to increase the price. And these stages have been in the working in the works for many years. And it's only until the price is raised, that the DPU says, okay, you now have these stages to go through. And that's just not fair. It's not fair to the people that when you want money, then you decide, okay, I might want to do these things so that I can get my money. In the DPU recommendation, they had strongly recommended that private grants be obtained and that the money provided by the residents is just a guesstimate. So now that the HWW has the grants, $350,000, I do expect that the correction of the manganese should occur as soon as possible. Now, under the DPU, they had said that within the fourth quarter of 2024, which will be before the new year, this should be corrected. I have not heard from your attorney as to what is being done about that. So you have a lot more convincing for me to understand where you're coming from.
Okay, thank you, Ruby. Any other comments from the board?
Just to point out that they're looking not at the solutions that were proposed, but only at the fines if they don't do anything. If they provided the water and made the water available, it doesn't necessarily mean delivering it to each household. There's other options. And doing some increased testing. Then they would avoid the fines.
May I respond briefly to some of the issues raised?
You may.
Thank you. I'm going to begin with the haloacetic acid. So last year, Housatonic implemented a DEP-approved two-step chlorination process to remediate heightened levels of haloacetic acid. And this has been successful to date. As recently as last Friday, there were test results received showing that we are in compliance with respect to regulations regarding haloacetic acid. My client has also indicated that they're willing to provide the board copies of all studies related to seasonal manganese done by the company and engineers, assuming DEP again signs off on the steps that we propose to take in response to this order, showing that we are in compliance with DEP's regulation with respect to manganese levels. The green sand filtration system that is being put in place to remedy increased manganese levels, this process has been taking time because of how heavily regulated the water supply system is. We are in the design phase and DEP is supporting our installation of this system next year. So we are well on our way to having this system installed. I understand that it's a time-consuming process, but it needs to be done the right way. And realistically, it's our position that we are nearing the end of this road with respect to heightened levels of manganese and discoloration. And with respect to the fines, it's not just the fact that the fines are very high. It's that from our standpoint, we're in compliance with the rules that we need to comply with as a public water supplier. We should not be punished for being in compliance with those rules. The way the order is set up, it would be virtually impossible for Housatonic Water to comply with providing water to 750 plus households. So it's not just the fine, it's really the direction that we were given. First, doesn't make sense because we haven't done anything wrong. But second, it would truly be impossible for a 4-employee company to add such a large task to its plate.
Okay.
Can I just comment?
Of course.
You use the word punish to the owners of Housatonic Water Works. What about the residents who are being punished every day? What about the people that use brown water? They can't use their washing machine.
Can I add reason to evidence?
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
We're not
We-
taking
we-
any public
No.
comment.
We're not taking
Not at
comments,
this time.
not at this point,
Thank you, though.
Thank you.
but thank you for, you'll have your time later.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry. I have to leave.
Please proceed.
So this method of considering punishment is totally irrelevant at this point. It has to do with nuisance. The nuisance is excessive. And we're willing to listen to the appeal, hoping that we'll get some hope that this nuisance will resolve. And you have the data and the preparation to set up this green sands filtration system, which has been in existence for many years. It's well publicized. It's not a new technique. And it's something that can be done. And I want to know what the time limit for that is, because if people are going to be punished, they like to know when it's going to end.
We anticipate the system to be installed before next summer. That's why, realistically, we do believe that issues regarding discoloration are ending now. We believe that after the system is flushed in October, this really won't be a problem anymore because this filtration system is set to be installed before weather gets warm again. I understand that it's been a long time coming, but because of all the red tape surrounding public water supply, we need to make sure this gets done right. And we are working with DEP to make sure it gets done right. The system is in the design phase. There were testing phases that we went through with this, and then it'll be installed. Again, the plan is for before next summer. And obviously with any sort of system like this, there's permitting, there's government approvals. That's what's kind of causing this to be not the quickest turnaround, but we're putting the work in to do it right and to get this done before next summer when this would have the potential to be an issue again. And we don't anticipate it being so.
Can you offer me a timeline?
So I've been advised that the plan is for this to be installed again before next summer. I don't have an exact date. I know that we're in the design phase and that the plan is to get this in the spring of next year.
Okay. Speaking for myself, but I think I can also speak for the board. I think it was our hope that in this appeal hearing that we would have an effort to address each of the issues in our order. Not so much a throw it all out and here's what we're willing to do, but to negotiate on each order. For myself, that's slightly disappointing to hear that, but not unexpected.
So I do think that our
Yes, if I may continue, thank you. These issues are quite historic. I think there's been characterizations that we've heard in our recent meetings that this problem doesn't go back that far, but we've heard many accounts from many people that it goes back many, many years. And the flood of complaints, the pictures we've seen, the testimonies we've heard, just in this one summer. I mean, that's the most we've ever had before a board.
Mhm.
And I still get pictures, we still get pictures, this even coming in just days prior to this, severely discolored water. And there's been a characterization that somehow this rests more on residents or on service lines or on underutilized sections of the system. And that's challenging to me because if that were the case, you'd expect to see that more throughout the year. And that this problem would be all the time. And we know that that's not quite true, that it's intermittent. So there's a number of things that don't square there. But I think in terms of what we heard about being in compliance with all the regulations and stipulations by DEP. For us and for our board, there's a disconnect there. Because we see official results come through. Yet we have ample evidence that there's a problem. And no one has been able to give us a satisfactory answer of exactly why that problem is happening. We've heard climate change used as a catch-all for, well, it's climate change now. And no one's denying that there's a change in our climate, but you know, when we hear those type of arguments generally thrown out there, for us as a board, we keep seeing, as Ruby alluded to, the nuisance just becomes ever bigger. And so that's why we look to those statutes. And in more of a philosophical or big picture view, I think the whole fact that we're here tonight wrestling with this issue speaks to a broader regulatory failure. That we can have a company who can hold up testing results and hold up papers and say, we're in compliance with DEP. Yet people can bring their water in here and say, how can I drink this? How can I bathe my child in this? So we are at a major impasse. And for us as a board, we've spent countless hours wrestling with this topic and wrestling with this order. And so to ask us to rescind it in its entirety, I can't do that this evening. But I'm not going to say that it won't be discussed further. But I think the request from my point that this order be rescinded in its entirety, I can't agree to that tonight. I think there is some mitigation or some way that we can talk about fine levels and some finer details, some finer points, but I'm guessing that won't be satisfactory to you or your client. I would also like to say that in the preparation of this meeting, you and your client asked for a suspension of any and all fines until this order or this appeal was heard. And so tonight, I would recommend to our board that we grant that request, that any and all fines be suspended until this appeal decision is made. But I think from what I've heard from you, Attorney Barnes, I'm not in favor of rescinding this order in any of its essence. But we could certainly discuss fine levels if that's what you'd want to do. But that's my position as of this moment, unless I hear a stronger argument against that, or unless I hear advice from town council that we need to consider our options further. So
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I didn't catch the very last words of your
Oh.
last sentence there.
unless you would advise us to consider our options at this juncture.
You have a couple of alternatives at this point. You could make a decision. You can deliberate, continue, and make a decision as a subsequent meeting. You could ask for some additional information from the company, perhaps maybe a proposal in writing with respect to the issues identified. One of the points that I think is a relevant inquiry based on my understanding of the history and the facts is those particular lines that the company says it does not own and has represented in various proceedings that it is not allowed to flush. I'm wondering whether if it got the authorization from the particular owners, if it could do so, because we would have a situation where some of the users / customers will get what is represented to be a benefit of flushing of the system, but others would not. And so I think that's a factual inquiry. The board can certainly consider a revision of the penalty structure. So there are, I think, a number of items, both procedural and factual, that you may want to hear additional information on before rendering a decision. And the last point I would say on procedure is that the guidance, if you will, that the board has used in issuing the order and setting the appeal period is based on what's in the administrative provisions of the state sanitary code, which do direct that upon an appeal and a consideration that the board issue a decision in writing. So when at the point you take a vote, you will need to document the elements of the vote so that it can then be put in writing.
Okay. Well, thank you. Having heard Mr. Dineski's suggestions and points, would the board like to comment or weigh options?
There was a Cornwell Engineering Group study of colored water and corrosion assessment, October 29th, 2020. That was 4 years ago. And since that time, we know that the manganese is the cause. And since that time, it has taken us 4 years to do the grain sands filtration evaluation, the initial testing. And with that testing, now they're designing a plan to institute the whole filtration system. As far as I know, the testing has worked for this type of system. So I would like to shorten, through the appeal, I was hoping for some sort of timeline that people could live with that determines at what point we could have that set up. And in order to do that, obviously, as the attorney has indicated, there are permits to be made, there's inspections that needs to be done. I would like an honest evaluation on how quickly the system can be implemented as part of the appeal.
And Mike, I've got a couple things. It seems like there's different, there's multiple goals we were trying to reach around people having water that they could drink and people having, us having testing that would get us some more information because we're kind of left in the dark. So I'm wondering if there's any steps we could take that wouldn't be the full extent of the order, but it would be somewhere in between. And I'm wondering, instead of $1,000, it'd be $100, and that water, that money, I don't know if that can be, because I get the impression that Housatonic Water Works has no interest in providing drinkable water, but people are having to pay for it to be able to live in that area. So I'm thinking that money could go to at least reimburse people. And so I don't want to let go of, I don't want to stay the fines if there's something we can do that makes it a level that would allow for some reimbursement. Because right now people can't drink the water, never mind all the other things they would like to be able to do with the water. On the testing front, it seems like 2 new testing sites isn't nearly sufficient. Moving to weekly testing, but I feel like negotiating for a testing plan that, yes, probably would include weekly, but would include other new sites. And specifically, I think we need to go to sites where the water is clearly problematic. And there needs to be some comparison between neighborhoods. And so I think there needs to be, probably with a consultant's advice, some plan to do more significant testing. I'm also, just the kind of more of a comment, but I'm not convinced the green sand filtration is going to resolve this whole issue. I feel like there's probably been a lack of investment in the infrastructure of the pipes over the years, and that there's going to still be issues, and there's something about which neighborhoods and those kinds of things. And it's not all just on the plant end. And I think that's also probably part of the reason why the testing is insufficient to give us the information we need. So I would not want to delay any, I would not want to set things aside and wait for an appeal. I feel like we put an order in place, and if there's any way we can keep at least some components of it intact, that would make the most sense to me.
So if I can characterize your comments, you're basically saying you're willing to negotiate over fine levels. But you feel it's still important that water be provided as I do.
Yeah, and there may be easier ways to do that.
Yes. Yes, I think that's what I was alluding to earlier, that, we're a very approachable board, and if the approach was made to negotiate on each of our points in our order, that's quite a different thing than asking for the order to be rescinded and suggesting an alternative short testing that only increased to 2 additional sites. I'm in agreement with Peter that I don't feel that would in any way be helpful to us as a board. We would want to see many more testing sites than just 2 additional. So that seems to be the opinion of the board, Attorney Barnes, is that we're willing to negotiate on some of these items in our order, but as of this time, I don't think any of us are willing to rescind the order in its entirety. I don't know if that's a discussion you'd want to have going forward, or if your what you laid out at the beginning is basically your hard and fast position.
I would need to confer with my client about that. I think it's worth me having a discussion with my client. Like I said, we think it'd be in the best interest of everyone to reach a resolution. But I am not prepared right now to offer anything more than what I indicated at the beginning of our discussions.
Okay. Well, I think I'd be willing to grant you more time to confer with your client, having heard our official position that we're standing behind the essence of our order. And for the record, we're willing to negotiate on the details of some of our points. But in essence, we want it to stand. So if you need more time, I think we as a board, I'd be willing to grant you that, speaking for myself. But the other board members.
Yeah, I have not heard anything that makes me feel comfortable with what's happening. I just have not heard any offerings that would help me understand what you're willing to do to relieve this nuisance.
Okay. Well, it sounds like then we're gonna head for a continuing of this public hearing. And I would propose that we meet in 1 week's time. But I do wonder, Mr. Dineski, is it okay for us to take a vote on the suspension of penalties as requested by Housatonic Waterworks and their council? Or what's the proper legal procedure to do that?
Mr. Chair, I do think that would be appropriate to put on the record. I believe the request that was made in the presentation is consistent with what was stated in the appeal letter dated August 29, which would be deadlines for performance of conditions be stayed pending the decision on appeal. And that would effectively stay, if you will, timeline or time period rather in which to take an action, and also suspend any applicable penalty for not taking the action. And I would ask council to comment if there's not the same understanding on that point, just so we're all clear.
That sounded right to me. Requesting a stay of all deadlines for performance in the order and associated penalties for non-performance. Essentially, we request that we not be required to take action pursuant to the order to correct during the pendency of the appeal, and that we not be penalized for not taking action in accordance with the order during the pendency of the appeal.
I
Okay,
think we're in agreement on that point.
yes, is
Well,
that relevant? Go ahead, Peter.
I'm just, I guess I don't understand why we wouldn't do something in between. And because I do think that everybody's being held hostage until we make progress with this, and you know, they're being charged for this product that is unusable. And they are living in that community and having to go buy all their water. So I don't understand why Housatonic Water shouldn't be paying for their water. I guess that is as simple as that right there.
Mr. Missy, is there an advantage to having the board vote on a stay? I think in part of our conversations, you seem to indicate that there was an advantage to doing so.
Mr. Chairman, if you, I direct you not to make any reference to communications you and I have had individually. I can respond to your question. And my sense from the presentation is that if there's not something on the record to that effect tonight, we'll all be in court tomorrow, which may affect the ability of both sides to get to some point in the middle. And I just say that in the middle generically, based on the discussion and presentation so far this evening. So I do think that there is an overall value to that. I think it's appropriate for the board to identify those particular things that it would like to hear from the company after this discussion, for which there was a representation, so that it can engage in substantive points at any continued session of this hearing.
Okay. I think some of the points we would like to see addressed at another meeting or our next meeting would be what the water company could do to work with us on these points rather than just have them rescinded entirely, with particular attention to the provision of bottled water. We understand the ask in terms of fines, that there'd be a reduction, but I think that would be something for us to determine. So basically, it's what ability would you have to negotiate on the bottled water? And also an increase in testing sites, not just to 2 additional ones, but test more than just 2. And also, and we can communicate with you about that, but to some of these problem areas where we've been getting many complaints. I don't have the streets in front of me, but I know we have a record of where many of those complaints have been coming in. But those seem to be the 2 major things we'd like to see a response to. Is there anything else you'd like to see a response
Yeah,
to?
I've recorded that since early July, there are at least 36 complaints from different people. There were multiple complaints from one household and several households multiple times, but overall there are 36 different households that have complained. I think we're all a community. The owners of this water supplier lives in our community and has involvement with our community. This is not a big company coming from Connecticut or somewhere else. And I do agree that we need to work with the owners to try to give some relief for the nuisance they have experienced year after year. I don't agree that we should just keep moving it along. And we need to hear a certain amount of concessions that could give some relief to the people as soon as possible. And I've already reiterated the issues at hand. I want some long-term plans to understand when this green sand is going to be installed. I would like to know at what point the testing results will come back to give us some relief of what the people are dealing with when the brown water comes out of their tap. So these are nuisance issues. It's not related to the DEP's regulations because their regulations have their issues, their guidelines, and we have ours. Okay. And I like to hear, before we vote, I like to hear what people have to say.
Oh, certainly. I would just like to get all our ducks in a row before we do that.
Thank you.
Yes. Peter, does that sound, or what do you say to that? And in an effort to keep this from ending in court tomorrow, that we would hopefully get some additional feedback from Houstonic Waterworks and on some of these points we've raised tonight, with the idea of continuing to next week, this public hearing. Well, you're muted.
I'm fine with continuing to next week. Obviously, as much progress as we can make in between would be good.
And are you in agreement that we grant a stay of all penalties for performance or non-performance till the appeal is till we make our final decision?
I don't know how to verbalize this, but I think it's really unfortunate. But I think, you know, for the sake of trying to negotiate something that's productive, sure.
Yes, that's how I'm seeing it, as a productive step to hopefully get something concrete. If there are no further comments from the board, I think we can move to hearing some public comment tonight. We have a number of people in the room. We have a number of people online. I'll remind everyone of our general guidelines, 3 minutes per person. Please state your name and address before you begin to speak. And I know this topic is very emotional. And because of the people who've been living in this reality for many years, but I would urge you to stay as on topic as you can to the nature of why we're here tonight, which is hearing this appeal. And that your comments be directed to that end as much as possible. With that being said, got a few hands up online, we've got a few hands in the room. We'll alternate. We'll start with hands in the room for those who made it out tonight, and then we'll go online and so on and so forth. So I see Mr. Stanton's hand up. So I'll turn to you as our first tonight.
Toby Stanton, 69 Division Street. I would like to see you guys do something tonight, and that could be as easy as just giving the Houstonic people a $25 discount so they can go buy their own drinking water. As something you could do tonight, instead of putting this off till next week and they decide their complaint was that they wouldn't have the manpower to get the water to all the houses. Give the house the discount and let them get their own water. Simple.
Okay. Thank you.
You mean per month, right?
Yes.
Per month off their water bill.
Yes.
Okay, we'll move to one of our attendees online. The first hand I see is Kate Van Olst. You're good to go, Kate, as soon as you're able.
There we go. Thank you. Kate Van Olst, 24 Hart Street, Housatonic. So these are my comments. One is Ruby Chang identified that as part of the nuisance statute that defines a nuisance as a source of filth, and that is accurate as to how I would depict the water supplied by Houstonic Water Works. It is filthy, it is dirty and brown, it stains our clothes, it ruins our laundry, it turns my tub brown when I try to bathe my children in it. I am very alarmed by the admission of the council of the company that they are not equipped to provide bottled water. I believe that as a public utility, that is a responsibility that they should be prepared for in the event of a natural disaster, a water main break, or some other situation outside of this situation. So I am alarmed once again to hear that this company is unprepared to provide adequate service, and that they should have a contingency plan for how to provide bottled water to their customers in case of any emergency. That is a real failure on their part to maintain best business management practices, which is of course how we have arrived at this situation. They do not practice best business management practices. Next point is that the fine cannot both be too big and too long, and it cannot be a problem that is soon coming to an end. You cannot have this both ways. Either it's a small short-term problem and you should have no problem covering the fines, or it is a big long-term problem, which it is. Second, I really want to direct the board's attention to the obvious cherry picking of testing site locations. That is an intentionally misleading and evasive maneuver on the part of the company. Obviously, any type of independent testing is going to be done either at the board's approval or at random, but at very least you need to focus on the problem areas. Otherwise, you are obviously intentionally misleading people. And then finally, I wanted to say that yes, the fine, as written in the order to correct, is very high. Houstonic Water Works showed no mercy on its customers when they passed along their expenses to us, asking us, forcing us to pay the highest water rate in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for this source of filth. And I ask you to show them no mercy in return. My request would be that you keep the fine, do not stay the fine. Hold them to it. When they start producing testing and bottled water, then as the order is written, then you can release them from the fine. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comments. Anyone in the room? Please.
I'm Michelle Adair, 70 Division Street, born and raised in Housatonic. I live in a family homestead. And this problem has been going on long before I had gray hair. I just want to, the conversation, it sounds like that this just all appeared for everyone, and that's not the case. In 2016, I stood before our select board and spoke because a young mother had come forward that her water was dirty. And it happened to be in my neighborhood at the time up in Housatonic. And I expressed anger at that time to our select board to do something. As a matter of fact, just as we're sitting here, I went online and there was an article in Mass Live in August 9, 2016, about Housatonic water. So this has been going on a long time. I'm a little surprised. I'm hearing, I expect legal language, and I'm hearing we believe, we believe, we believe. And I can believe in a lot of things, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. I can believe I can fit in a size 4 jeans, but that isn't going to happen, okay? So what I do believe in is we're going to be right back in this room a year from now. So I don't believe what I'm hearing as far as this problem is going to be resolved. And in the meantime, we're going to be spending a lot of money. Our rates are going up again, and they're going to go up again and again. And just tonight, when I got home, I'm a neat freak. I like my toilets clean, my sinks clean. I noticed sediment in a toilet that I cleaned just this morning. It took 3 flushes to clear it out. And I'm probably going to get charged for each and every flush, and that's not right as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Okay, James, Great Barrington, you will be up next.
Good evening, board. This is James Garzone, 84 North Plain. I apologize if I go on, so please cut me off at 3 minutes. Couple of
will.
things I want to address is one, it's obvious that Ms. Barnes' participation is because she focuses on litigation practice, mainly on construction. I'm looking at her bio right now. I appreciate that Mr. Cox wasn't on the call because his tone last time was rather harsh, and that's why they have Ms. Barnes today rather than Mr. Cox. Mr. Mercer has shown no mercy on the community for years, not 1, not 2, not 3. And it took the Board of Health to finally issue a nuisance decree for him to finally come and speak about the brown water. I am urging the Board of Health not to stay the decree, to continue. Housatonic Waterworks should finally stand up and do what is right. We are too nice and have been too nice for too many years. And it's about time we have clean water for our residents. The time is now, and I urge you, please, not to stay the decree. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone in the room?
Maureen Quigley, 7 Depot Street. They, meaning Housatonic Waterworks or Jim or Fred themselves, say that they will fix it by next summer. And when asked, why do some homes have brown water, some sludge, some yellow, some clear, and others don't, it was blamed on aging pipes that they have failed to upgrade since they've owned it 1984. They also have increased the rates over and over again in these 40 years and have done minimal, if anything, to upgrade the system. DEP and EPA are very understaffed and the regulations haven't been updated in over 20 years. So they're not really the greatest source for regulating. Mr. Mercer brags to his neighbors that he's the one everyone hates and he doesn't care because he has a well. And then his son said, that's not true. He doesn't have a well. There's always multiple different stories. He's complaining about the fine amount. However, Mr. Mercer has no problem taking people to court and putting liens on their property if they don't pay for the sludge water that's unusable. The fine amount has no comparison to the amount of money he has taken from the residents and the amount of money that has been spent on filters, water, laundromats, and destroyed appliances. I find your response pathetic. If I were you, I would be embarrassed to represent this company. I can only conclude you are making an enormous amount of money to make a fool of yourself. I invite you to come here, take a bath, drink, and do your laundry, and Mr. Mercer will be more than happy to send you a bill.
All right, thank you for your comment. I saw one other hand up,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, my name is Leslie. I've been podcasting about water since 2005, starting here in Great Barrington. It's called And So It Flows. Now we're based in Pittsfield. So this is a question to the attorney Ashley Barnes. What is it like? Imagine if you're a mom trying to bathe your kid. If you're a mom, you may understand. What would it be like if you couldn't give your kid clear water to go to school, prior to school? What would it be like? And then how could you find yourself on this side, on the wrong side of history? Because that's a straight up question. What's it like for you defending a company that doesn't want to provide clean water to citizens of Housatonic / Great Barrington.
If I may, sir, all questions should be directed to the chair of the board
Okay,
as
so,
point of order.
gotcha,
Yes.
that I didn't know.
Yes.
Okay, so,
But I think your point is well taken.
yeah,
Yes. Any additional questions or comments you'd like?
no, that's it.
Okay.
That is really it.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Eileen Mooney. Just a moment, you'll be next. You should be good, Eileen, to ask your question. You're muted at the moment.
I'm sorry. Okay, now can
That's
you,
okay.
all right.
We can hear you.
Eileen Mooney, 2 Bernard Gibbons Drive. Where at 2 Bernard Gibbons Drive is the test site? If Ms. Barnes could ask her client,
We can find out that information.
please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Oh, please.
Hi, I'm Livia, I'm living 224 Oak Street. So this is my water. Thing, that's the proof. That's the water. We have been complaining for this water for years, 10 years. 10 years. Even my husband, we went to the meetings and everything, my neighbor, 4 of my neighbors have died in the street, and we are only 15 people, 15 families. How is that possible? It's not about the discoloration, it's about the chemicals in the water has. And what they're doing, and they are complaining that it's too much money for them. No, it's about our health, it's about everything, we have kids. How about taking a shower every morning with this water? Or drinking water, I have been buying water for 10 years. My husband said, sweetie, don't make coffee from the faucet, and he did. He died 2 years ago. Our neighbor, 3 years ago. Come on. I was hoping to see Mr. Mercer here, to tell him on his face, come on. He knows what the answer, he knows what the solution is. He said he can keep it up, he can replace the pipes because it's going to cost so much money. He's a private company and he cannot do that. Okay, let Great Barrington, they don't want Great Barrington to take over and fix this problem. That'll be it. That'll be it. It's not about water. Come on. This lady, she should be ashamed of herself defending this company. Really. Really. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Okay,
Makes me so.
thank you for your comment. One online, Elizabeth Rockefeller. Just a moment. Elizabeth, we just need to promote you to panelists so that you can speak, given that we're in a webinar format. Just need to unmute yourself and we'll be able to hear you.
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
I purchased my house in 1976.
Your name and address, ma'am, just for the record.
Elizabeth Rockefeller, 284 Park Street, Great Barrington. I
Thank
purchased
you.
my house in 1976, and this problem started even back at that point, only a short period of time and the short period of time in the spring and in the fall. And now here we are today. It's the area around me on Park Street has the same problem. People who have all house filters or other filters, when the filters become so dirty that they have to change them, the water is still going through, the dirty water is still going through dirty filters. And I agree that this has to be stopped. There's only been Band-Aids put on the problem for that number of years. And I think the town, the Board of Health should be aggressive when addressing them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lee,
Lee Davis, 9 Sumner Street. So I agree. I think there should be a say on the public hearing. For the reason that I would hope and I appeal to the Mercers that they show empathy, that they look at the short-term impact and the financial hardship of those customers of theirs that they serve. I don't see anything that points to the fact that they recognize the fact that people are scared of drinking the water, that every single day that they're faced with dirty water, they're faced with public health concerns. And what I would do is I would appeal to the Mercers to offer some olive branch in the interim, either in terms of a financial compensation, of some timeline that addresses the real concerns of public safety and the fact that we have discolored water and that there are people paying for something that's inadequate. So I would hope that the Mercers listen to the people and see the people in the room and look at the participants, 48 people, and address the concerns now and realize that people cannot afford to keep living this way, that this has been going on for years and years and years. And when we come back to this public hearing, that they have something else to offer in the immediate time, that in terms of financial compensation, in terms of a timeline that makes sense. The Mercers have received money from the Mass DEP, and I would love to know where that $300,000 is going. Why is that not going into the pockets of the customers here? I would like to know that if the town does purchase Housatonic Waterworks, that we're not just increasing the value every time we do work, every time they get money from the state. This is not because the state is dragging their feet on permitting or red tape. This is because they have not invested in their infrastructure. And, speaking for the residents of Housatonic and those affected, we need a solution now. We need to make sure that you come back to the public hearing with a different deal that addresses the problems immediately. So.
thank you.
Listen to these things about right now. It's a complicated issue. There's the water that you just showed, that's light. I don't know if you know, but that's very, very light. It's like dark tea for many people.
Yeah.
With infants. So there's not just drinking, and you talked about why didn't the health board order bottle, single-use, take away the single-use ban. To fill bathtubs and to shower in when it's not, 85 degrees. Senior, that's where there's a health emergency. We can get a jug of water. You can't bathe or do your laundry when it's really hot. I don't know, just to look, anyway. So that's one issue. When the water's clear, it doesn't mean it doesn't have, haloacetic acid in it. So there's the gross brown water we can't use for laundry or bathing, and then there's, possible carcinogens in our water. And also the other issue is, I don't believe in the green sands. Push it down the road, everything will be fine after you pay more, than anybody else in the county or country. There's a lot of indications, for instance, dark brown water in parts of town, clear water in other parts of town, then it's dark, then it's clear, then it's dark, then it's clear.
Those orange sea monkeys, probably.
There's a little sediment.
Oh my God.
Oh, I see this too in the bottom of my toilet. And I live on one of the so-called private streets, which of course we're gonna see proof for that, no records of that. And Jim Mercer said at a meeting that those were the ones that tended to have worse water. We looked, I don't have the figures in front of me, but they're there. Those were not where their complaints were coming from. I'm one of those people. I have sort of that color water or a little lighter all the time. So that's a whole ruse. That's not the issue, those so-called private roads, because they are not the ones making most of the complaints, although Mr. Mercer claimed they were. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sharon Gregory online, just one moment.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, thank you. Sharon Gregory, Hollenbeck Avenue, Great Barrington. I have taken an interest, even though I'm not a Housatonic water user, for over 4 years. I've studied the Housatonic water financials for 7 years. All that is available online from Mass DPU. I note that I have no sympathy for the fact that Housatonic Water has 4 employees, and I'm surprised at that, but 2 of them are at executive level compensation. This is an odd way to allocate its resources. This is to be compared to the Great Barrington Water Company, also known as the Great Barrington Fire District. They have 1 executive serving twice the number of water users and about 7 to 9 employees, part or full time. So it's hard to have any sympathy with a company with 850 water users where there are 2 people pulling down 6-figure executive salaries. I urge the Board of Health to not show any further alleviation of the penalties or provide open-ended time to create excuses for 40 years of managing the water company. The DPC study showed that the Housatonic water system distribution system has only replaced about 17% of its distribution systems, its lines. This is to be compared to 37%, and it's probably higher than that now for the Great Barrington Water Company. That tells me that very little has changed. And I agree with the last speaker. It's not just the filtration system, there's the distribution system, and that's not even being addressed here. So giving more time is actually going to dilute the case, because as the water temperatures lower, the likelihood of zeroing in on the causes of the poor water is going to be reduced. So I ask, please don't do that. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your comment. Anyone else in the room? Please.
Joyce Pierce, 37 Park Street. I have been collaborating with Andrew Behrens, also Housatonic, and putting out a Google Forms survey every week for 7 weeks to gather some information from Housatonic households about their situation relative to the water issue. And I've posted the link to the survey in a couple of Facebook groups associated with Housatonic residents and sent the link to each form by email to people who have provided their email in prior surveys. We've had about 90 total households participate with anywhere from 25 to 50 responses each week. Obviously, this is not a scientific process since it's not 100 households, but it is 90. And I don't have the means to get all the same people to respond every week, and I don't claim to be an expert at grading or analyzing survey results, and the tool we're using has many limitations. Even so, what we have seen in doing this at least confirms that the problem is erratic and inconsistent around the village. And so we feel that the data we gathered helps to validate the question about whether only treating the water at the source with the sand filtration will really resolve the discoloration issue. That highlights the concern about the very old distribution pipes, as a few other people have mentioned. In these surveys, we've asked people for their email address, street address, whether or not they have a whole house water filter, which very few people actually do. How many days they've had discolored water, ranging from 0 days to constantly. So we have had a number of people who have clear water also responding to the surveys. Whether their water was mildly, moderately, or severely discovered, what activities they could not use the water for, drinking, bathing, laundry, and whether they have anyone in the household who is 65 and over, under 2, or has a history of cancer or autoimmune disease. More recently, I added questions to find out if their water has gotten better, stayed the same, or gotten worse in the past week and in the past month. My time is limited, and as I said, I'm not an expert at all of this, but there are some people who say their water's gotten a little better. Some say it's gotten worse. Some say it's stayed the same. So as of right now, we're kind of in the same boat that we have been all summer. One week I mapped out the addresses that reported discolored water and also mapped out addresses thus far that had reported clear water. I suspected this would show overlap, and it did. Again, we think this validates the concern that something else besides just the manganese may be contributing to the variations in water discoloration around town. If there's a simple explanation or even a complex one for this variation, the waterworks apparently hasn't given residents who have discolored water enough answers that are satisfactory to them. I did email a summarization a few weeks ago of some of the survey data, I believe to a couple of you on the board and Mike Hugo, but I didn't really expect a response. I know how crazy busy you all are and how complex and involved this issue is, but I just wanted to let you know that if you think any more of the information that Andrew and I have collected would be useful, to please let me know, and I would do my best to try to create summaries if any of that's useful. I can't share with you email addresses because I haven't gained permission for that, but I could share any other data. I'm going to discontinue these surveys for the time being since I don't really have a lot of time to devote to this, but I wanted to be helpful in some way to the community. I hope this has given people a sense that we are all working together to solve this thing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
One more comment is that if you might want to convey to Council for Housatonic Waterworks that when she's speaking and refers to Housatonic Waterworks as Housatonic, it's a little confusing out here because the predominance of the residents of the town of Great Barrington who have problems with the water live in the village of Housatonic. So I was having to constantly translate in my head because she's referring to Housatonic Waterworks as Housatonic, and I refer to them as Waterworks and us as Housatonic. So just a suggestion that she doesn't seem to be as familiar with how this all works as I would have hoped.
Okay, I'm sure that point will be well taken.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah. Please.
Nina Brogan, I'm on 269 North Pine Road. We've been there for 55 years. Putting up with Housatonic water, which didn't go back to 55 years, but since certainly in the last 40 years, off and on, I have years and years and years ago, I brought down sheets to them that were tie-dyed, but way before people all started talking, and he just laughed and said, "What do you want me to do about it? What do you want me to do about it?" Our bills are outrageous. And like someone said, you're trying to clear your water, you're trying to flush your toilet and clear it, and you're getting billed for that. I don't think tonight you should give them any leniency at all. The prices keep going up and up and up. We buy bottled water. We can't afford a filtration system, but people that have them are paying for filters. All this is, and paying a bill. Why should we be ain't paying the bill, he should be paying us. It's outrageous, it's truly outrageous, and I have a friend up the road from me that needed to put in a new hot water heater. Contacted 2 different companies, and they would not warranty the water heater because of Housatonic water. 2 companies said, well, we'll put in a new water heater for you, but we're not gonna warranty it. And what's happening to our wash machines and everything else? It's just craziness. And then you sit there and say, well, maybe, you know, we could negotiate a little. I don't think you should negotiate anything with them. And they're not showing us, and then you want to raise the rates and do nothing? Maybe fix it and show us, and then maybe raise some rates. This is just nonsense. That's it, I guess.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands online. Anyone else in the room who hasn't spoken
Yeah.
yet?
I'm her husband.
Please, sir.
Peter, 269 North Lane. It was owned by George Wright before him. And we go all the way back to that home. There was never any problem with the water with George Wright. George Wright honored everything when it came to the water with his customer. The other thing is Mercer seems to point out that it's old lines that cause problems. Well, let me tell you, we put in a brand new line, 350 feet out to the road. We still had the same damn problem. It's not the damn water lines, it's the Mercers
So it's coming
that
in.
don't take care of their end of the deal. We foot the bill, they give us nothing.
I don't see why we should have to pay for their water and then buy water to drink, but like other people have said, it's not only the drinking end of it, you've got to bathe in it, and I heard somebody say, oh, they try to wash their head with a they wash it, they don't want to get in the shower now, they try to wash their hair with a jug of water, and oh my gosh, it's might as well go to the third world country someplace. It's just. And I think you can give them time and give them another week for what? It's been going on, and then they want to say, oh, climate change. Way before that.
All right, thank you for your comment. Sir, just behind me.
Tom Brazy, 17 Right Lane, Houston. Just a comment on the testing of the water. A few years ago, I made a couple complaints and sent a bunch of pictures to everybody. And the Mercer showed up at my house to test my water, which was fine. But I'll tell you what, it was like watching a 3-ring circus of them trying to test my water. I had to tell them where to test it, how to do the test, how they should sanitize everything before they do the test. So I'm not very confident in their testing abilities, even at these other locations. So, I mean, they have to be watched or regulated or whatever the word may be, just after my personal experience with them in my own house, trying to watch them take a test. So.
And this was, who exactly was this?
It was Jimmy and some testing company showed up at my house because they took a bunch of pictures of my dirty water and sent it to the Board of Health, the DEP, the whole 9 yards. And Jimmy called me to schedule a appointment to make a test. And when they showed up, they were kind of dumbfounded about where in the house they should take the test, how they should take the test. And being a plumber, I'm like, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, and you gotta do this. So I'm telling them how to take the test. To sanitize it and make sure they get a good test without bacteria or whatever in it from, say, my faucets or whatever, from just soap or touching them. So it was like watching a 3-ring circus.
Okay, thank you for your comment. See one hand raised online. All it says is iPad guest. So hopefully you know who that is. And we can get your name and address before you begin. Whoever the owner of someone who's tuning in on an iPad, I'm assuming maybe there's just one tonight.
All right, how's that?
We can hear you, sir. Name and
All
address,
right.
please.
Thank you. Jim Stark, 1099 Main Street. Judging from Dr. Chang's remarks and Mr. Stanton's, it seems they believe that all the people in Housatonic are getting dirty water. But that's not really the case, is it? Would you be interested in finding out how many people are getting dirty water or what percentage? Don't you think that would be important to know? The town spent some money getting studies done, but those studies did not answer that question. And until that question is answered, we don't know what the water company should do or not do. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. My only comment to that would be, at this point in the process, we've asked everyone who experiences discolored water to send us an email to let us know. I think that's the best way for us to start collecting how many people. And I know that request has been out there, but I'll reiterate it again. Some of the complaints that we get, even this past week, were people who said, I felt bad about coming forward, but I felt I just had to. So we encourage everyone who experiences this problem to send the Board of Health an email and any pictures or videos. That's very helpful to us. Anyone else in the room who hasn't spoken yet?
Can I just say something about these? There's people like ourselves that don't know how to do that. So
You could go the old fashioned way and call on the telephone and we can
Okay.
write your name down.
okay, we'll do that.
I think that can
But
work.
I think you're losing, I'm probably not the only.
I agree.
one.
I agree, and that's a good point. Anyone who doesn't have the technical prowess to go on the computer, you can pick up the old telephone and call the Board of Health. We'd be happy to take down your name and number and that you have that experience that problem.
Okay, thank you.
Please.
People have mentioned filters here and there. People say to me, why don't you just get a whole house filter? It costs $300 something, but I don't have a basement. But also, it's kind of been alluded to, but you guys have seen the pictures perhaps? All different kinds of filters, all the filters that I've seen that you're supposed to only have to replace once a month, once every 3 months. Pitch black, dark like the frame of Great Barrington, Massachusetts, there behind you. So you're spending extra money. The filters don't solve the problem.
Yeah.
Because they have to be changed, every week.
And not every house is available for one, but also.
Okay, thank you. Deborah Herman. Just one moment. You'll be up next. Just need to unmute, Deborah, and you're all set to go.
Deborah Herman, 373 North Plain. I just want to say that the number of people who's complained is significant, but I think it's just a small fraction of the people with problems, because I know of neighbors who have problems and I ask them to, send in a photo or get in touch with the board, and they don't do it. And a lot of people don't do it because they have completely given up. They have dealt with this problem for forever. They don't believe there's any solution. They don't believe there's any help offered. And they just are cynical and resigned. And it's like why some people don't vote, and then they, complain about government. So I think that what you're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. And, it's just very difficult to say that that's the number of people with problems. The second thing is I just want to reiterate what some people said about Housatonic Water being merciless. They do not offer any help to people who have difficulties with the water, and they will sue you. They will put a lien on your property. They will turn off your water. If that's what they have to do to get their money, that's really mostly what they care about, so far as I can tell. Thank you, and I hope that you will not delay any further. It's already taken weeks to get to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet before we go to those who have? Michelle.
Michelle Bear, 70 Division Street. I just have a question directed to the Board of Health. Tonight, we're talking a lot about the dirty water, what it's doing to our homes, but somebody brought up, even when the water's clear, there could be toxins in there. And I'm just curious, I'm not hearing any conversation about asking people about health issues that they may experience, and having another family member just diagnosed with cancer. And like I said, we all grew up on Housatonic water. And I'm starting to get really concerned. I'm a cancer survivor myself. And I also brought before the Board of Health, I think it was a couple of years ago, that in 2020, my husband almost lost his eyesight. He had an infection in his eyesight. We thought it was an infection, ended up going to Mass Eye and Ear. The first thing the specialist said, were you swimming in a pond or a hot tub? My husband said, no, it was at the time, January or February. And so it turned out he had a campaniba, which is a parasite in his eye that actually starts eating the infection in the eye. For a year, my husband was under treatment at Mass Eye and Ear. This is concerning because you generally see that parasite in third world countries. And so my husband's eyesight's fine now, thank goodness for Mass Eye and Ear, but we were told if we had waited one more week, we could have been blinded. So I think there are some health issues going on in our community that could be or may not be attributed to Housatonic water, but I think it's worth delving into at some point. My daughter has severe Crohn's disease. She grew up in Housatonic. Could it have been the water? Could it have been something else? Yes. But I think it should be on the Board of Health's radar that it's not just about groundwater and our washing machines and our water heaters. By the way, which something did happen to a brand new water heater of mine, but I would like to see this run parallel, that you're going to look into health issues. And perhaps connecting the dots may show something that it's going to raise some eyebrows. Thank you.
Thank you. Lee, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Lee Davis, 9 Sumner Street. Appealing to the Mercers that I know that are on the line right now. Where is the humanity? Can they look at the people in this room? Can they look at the 40-something names on the Zoom and just, try to meet us where we are? Try to give us something immediately that we feel that you're understanding what Housatonic Water Works customers are going through. I feel like there's a disconnect here. I feel that it's courts and there's labs and there's testing, but there's no talk of recognizing financial hardship, of the public safety work, concerns, health concerns. I'm missing humanity. I'm missing the empathy, and it would mean so much if, when the public hearing is continued, for them to come back with some kind of olive branch and say, we hear you, and for for this immediate time, we're gonna offer you this. We're gonna give you this to address your financial hardships. Because we keep, talking time and time again about lawyers and testing, and we're missing the day-to-day struggles of people that are struggling with this water, with the Housatonic Water Works customers. So I appeal to the Mercers' humanity, I appeal to their empathy, and I ask that you come back with something that we can actually feel that you understand the concerns.
Thank you.
Toby Stanton, 69 Regent Street. This is not a health issue, so I didn't bring it up before, but it is a safety issue. And that is the pressure in the mains and the hydrants. We have history there at our house. And I think that there's way more to this problem with Housatonic Water Works than just the health issues. But I understand that you are dealing with health. But the lawyer for the Mercer should understand that we have more problems than just health here.
And I have it on video, what happened
Okay, thank
to
you.
the stands.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak tonight? I'm not seeing any other hands online. Or hands, anyone who hasn't spoken yet.
It hasn't.
Maureen, go ahead.
Maureen quickly, 17 First Street. I just want to add as well that some of the piping that they have failed to replace has asbestos in it.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Okay. Any other comments? Not seeing any more hands raised. Come back to the board. And I think one of the many consistent points we had brought up was some sort of recognition of the financial costs that customers of Housatonic Water Works are being forced to incur. And so I would add that on our list, Attorney Barnes, that we'd like to have addressed in some way at our next meeting. Any other comments from the board before we look to continue our hearing?
Peter?
Not at this time.
Okay, nothing from people.
Two things came to my mind is that the order to cease nuisance means that the nuisance at this point, the main thing is that people need clean drinking water and they need it as soon as possible. My recommendation is that Housatonic Water Works provide drinking water as stipulated in our nuisance order starting tomorrow. And at the same time, provide information through hiring of an independent consultant to determine what is the quickest way we can deal with the issue at hand. Is it water testing? Is it taking care of the pipes? Is it the green sands? And how long is it foreseeable going to last? We've given Housatonic Water Works a long time, as you guys all testified. And I think we've waited long enough. And I think that we do need to have something done. And I do believe that you guys deserve clean drinking water at the least. So I believe that I would move that we can move next week for the olive branch, but this week I want clean drinking water. While we're trying to get some empathy and some humanity from the people who are providing the water to the residents.
So you're in favor of requiring that water should be provided after today, but the rest of the hearing.
And the rest we can wait till next week.
Mr. Dineski, if this goes to court tomorrow, what does the process look like? One of the board members is asserting that we maintain the provision can we parse out the provision like that? Can we say we want this about this to continue? And the other stuff to be appeal, remain in the appeal till a subsequent meeting? So I guess a two-part question. Can we split out this part of our order? And if this goes, Attorney Barnes at the beginning of our meeting tonight suggested that they were prepared to go to court tomorrow. If that were to happen, what would be the fate of our order in terms of compliance?
Mr. Chair, in my view, you do have the authority to modify your order. So you would have to take a vote to stay, if you will, until the conclusion and decision on the appeal. All those elements except for the provision of water, and to direct that the water be provided as was contained in the order. If there's an application to court, I suspect it would be a request that there be a preliminary injunction against the order. I can't tell you what the result would be. I can't even say with certainty that there would necessarily be a hearing tomorrow. I think it might be worth asking the company what, if anything, they would be prepared to do, even if they need to take a moment of recess with respect to provision of water pending further proceedings of this board next week.
I echo that, Attorney Barnes. It seems that our board, I tend to be in agreement with Ruby that I'm inclined to want to see the provision of bottled water remain as part of our decision tonight. Is that something you'd like to confer with your client about, your response to that?
I have conferred with my client and we're not in a position to be able to agree to that.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. Mr. Deskey, if this goes to court tomorrow, what ability do we have to enforce our order, or does that put it in further limbo?
The circumstances would depend on what the ultimate vote is this evening, what remains, what is modified, what is removed, if anything. So looking at this from a totality, I think the issue for the board is what is most likely or what presents the greatest possibility of getting some relief, because I think it's fair to say that what the board is looking for is not something that is a penalty, quote unquote, and I'm just using the word of the order, but rather relief from the conditions that are described in the order. And whether there's a greater or lesser ability to achieve that by adopting a stay of the entirety of the order pending your further proceedings next week. I think it's clear from what the board has heard and what the board members have said that that is a very important issue and priority and requires further attention and comment and some level of action by the company.
Attorney Barnes, is your client willing to negotiate in any way on the relief in terms of bottled water, or is that a hard no we're hearing?
We're not able to comply with the provision as written in the order. I would need to talk offline with my client about perhaps some sort of middle ground, but I don't have authority to agree to anything short of what's in the order, and I cannot agree to what's in the order.
Okay. Given that that's the case, these decisions are always hard to make because you're balancing what we've heard from people and also the reality of the system in which we inhabit. I would be in favor of staying our order until our next meeting in its entirety, staying any fines until our final decision. but I would propose that we meet sooner than a week. I know there's certain timelines that we have to follow for open meeting law. But we could have a meeting as soon as next Tuesday. And then everyone has time to confer with their counsel. The board has a few more days to ruminate on your positions. We can get response to some of our questions that we've asked. That's one option as I see it. Of course, our first option is to decide tonight in its entirety. But that has its ramifications as well. So I'm in favor of continuing this till next Tuesday night. We could have a virtual only hearing and we could make our final decision then. But I'm just one voice. But it seems I would recommend to the board that we take that.
The order was written.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, may I
yes,
offer
please.
something here?
Yes.
If the board is more comfortable conferring with counsel, I can email the board members and Mr. Dineski a Zoom link, and you can go into recess now and go use your phones to talk to Mr. Dineski. If you want that, I'm willing to set that up. I've actually got a number I could send to you right away. And you can have your own private Zoom room and go into another room on your phones and talk to Mr. Dineski if you want to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I would have to say that because your notice of this hearing and meeting does not contain executive session discussion, that we would not unfortunately be able to do that this evening.
Good catch.
What if we include that in our next meeting? That we have a brief executive session and then we go into open session?
We can structure the notice to accommodate that possibility.
Okay, I would strongly lean towards doing that. I think that would be wise for us to do that. If it falls within the parameter of the law, then that's what we should do.
And again, I just have a couple of requests. If we lengthen this till next Tuesday, this is going on multiple sessions now, multiple weeks. That I strongly recommend that Housatonic Water Works take into consideration immediate relief, which is allowing drinking water to be provided for the people who need them. Short-term relief, which is testing and figuring out where the problems are, and long-term relief, meaning that we need to have some outline and end date as far as what is going to be done. And it has to be better than what the 5 stages that had been put into the DPU, which we are appealing that as well.
Okay, so you'd like to see those questions addressed the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so are you in favor with continuing till next Tuesday? Now?
Yes.
Okay. Peter, are you also amenable to continuing to next Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay. We also need to take a vote on staying our penalties till next Tuesday, till our final decision. So I believe we have 2 votes we need to take. So we'll make the first on the stay of penalty till I don't think I have to say it again.
Yeah, I make a motion to stay the order, including fines, until next meeting.
I second, including, also including provision of drinking water. There are 2 parts to that.
Okay.
I don't think we're all on the same page on that one.
Okay.
So you want to still require them to provide drinking water? No.
I'm saying that that's part of the stay. The stay.
Yes,
would
it's
be
the order.
fine,
Yep.
The fine and the drinking water.
Yes, well,
Yeah.
it would be the whole order to stay.
Yeah.
Including the fines.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Mr. Jeske, do we need to make a cleaner motion?
If I may summarize, the motion is to stay the order, including assessment of any penalties, until at least the time of conclusion of the board's next meeting, which will be the continuation of this hearing on Tuesday, September 10th.
So
Okay.
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And for a roll call, Peter,
Aye.
Ruby?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. I'll now look for a motion to continue this public hearing to next Tuesday.
I make a motion.
Which-
Oh, is there more to that?
No, just the time. We just need the actual date and time. That's all.
Presidential debate.
Oh, jeez. It's a presidential debate that day.
So we're talking about Tuesday, the 10th.
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion to continue this hearing, public hearing, on the 10th of September, next Tuesday, 6:30.
I second the motion.
And-
Roll call will
and
be.
if the motion
Yeah.
should identify the fact, as I believe was stated, that it will be a remote only hearing
Yes. Okay,
with the notice as usual
Yes.
to be posted to the town website.
okay. You want to amend that, Peter?
Can I just
Virtual only?
amend it to include that's a virtual only meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I second.
And the roll call will be Peter.
Aye.
Mhm.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you, Attorney Barnes. And we'll be looking to speak with you next Tuesday evening.
Thank you all.
On our agenda tonight, we had a subsequent public hearing, which is no longer applicable as our hearing for the appeal is continued to next Tuesday. So moving down our agenda, it's another opportunity for people to speak on anything Board of Health related. If you wish to do so. Anyone online, last chance to ask any questions, or make a comment? Any hands raised? See one, yes, ma'am.
Can I just go back to something that he had said? So Mercer's can't provide bottled water for us. But your name was Toby? Said it would be simple just to put a credit on everyone's bill. Why can't they do that? And we'll buy our own bottled water. Although he said $25, I think that's cheap.
They've heard the comment. We'll see what they come back with.
They heard it.
Yes,
All right.
yes. Any other comments? Maureen?
So yeah, I'm not in agreement with that because there are several people that in the community that are disabled and unable to go out and buy their own water, and we're talking 5-gallon jugs. So, no, there's no mercy. It is a business. It is black and white. They are providing a product that is not usable. Most people don't pay for something that's not usable. We still continue to pay for it. We have an order. The order needs to stay in place, full force, 100%. There's no reason why it shouldn't.
Okay,
You know, it's not about empathy. It's not about this. He is a narcissist. Narcissists don't feel empathy, or we wouldn't be where we are today. So it is a business, and this is what needs to be done.
okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Please.
Joyce Pierce, 37 Park Street. I agree with, your decision to, stay the order till Tuesday based on what we heard, would be the consequences if you didn't do that. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. I, appreciate that you made that decision. And I also hear the frustration and how long this has gone on.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Last call for comments.
Yeah, why not the town of Great Barrington just give the town of Housatonic like about 5 or 10% off their tax bills and let the town deal with it right here. The town of Barrington get off their blood.
Well, we have a member of the select board here. Your comment has been heard. Seeing no more questions, any media questions? Not seeing any, I'll look for a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
And our final roll call will be Peter,
Aye.
Ruby,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Dineski.
you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Welcome. Good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.